If community involvement is not part of your life plan, it's a little short-sighted. Most people don't think that they can change the systems that are in place in their communities, and that leads to a life of helplessness, a life that will translate to everyone that person connects to. And most people fall in this category, in my opinion, because it's really difficult to come to terms with the fact that the community is facing problems. Any community you live in life is going to have something that needs to be dealt with, something that needs to change in order for people to thrive in the way that probably nature intended. Community involvement is also a major indicator of success, one of the major non-cognitive variables that are seeked out in public institutions, schools, and workplaces. A culture that enriches people, that enriches you and those around you, is necessarily more efficient, as discussed in the book Compassionomics. It's a fallacy of our recent day and age that we believe that there is something other than what needs to happen in nature, needs to happen in an ecosystem, where things need to actually be compassionately aware of the struggles of its neighbor or other organisms in the area. Community involvement is one of the foundational things that will make you feel satisfied in life as well, because a lot of times life can get lonely. It doesn't matter how big your social network is, it doesn't matter how much love you're receiving, there are going to be moments in your life that you have to sit alone and contemplate and be okay with the things that you're doing. And I promise you, if we harness our ability and direct it towards improving the situations of the people that are going to come after us, the immense satisfaction that brings is going to be contagious to the people that you interact with on the daily. It can be strangers, it can be your family, it can be your friends. I promise you, there is nothing quite like it. Community involvement really doesn't require too much work. Just a conscious effort to be thinking in the back of your mind, hey, there's a pothole in the road. I wonder if there's a system in this city or in this town where I can report that pothole. Or hey, someone got into a car accident. Fine, I don't have the ability to stop right now, but perhaps I can call the cops for them, right? There is tremendous benefits for this. A society where people are forming connections to form a web for those that are struggling is necessarily one that will last longer. And I'm talking about hundreds of years. I'm talking about centuries of time. The empires that have come and gone, the ones that lasted and the ones that we still dream about, had tremendous cultures. Ones that brought up people that were philosophers, people that were creative, but also people that are ambitious entrepreneurs. All of these aspects of the mind needs to be tended to in a community for it to be sustainable, essentially. So you might be thinking to yourself, hey, I'm involved in a community. I go to my church, I volunteer, in my workplace, whenever events go on, I tend to bring food, what have you. And if you're in that situation, good. You made it to this video, cheers. You are one of the people that is bringing society to where it needs to be. For those of you that don't have this in their life and are saying to yourself, I do not have the time, I argue to you that it's really not all that difficult. It really just takes your thought in order to actualize what's going on in your life. So if you start thinking to yourself that, hey, there are inequalities, okay? Now every single action that you take from that point on will necessarily take into account that philosophy. You are what you think. If, however, you are someone that thinks that nothing is wrong, that my life is good because perhaps you're wealthy or privileged, or you're not particularly lonely, I say to you, There is going to be a moment in your life where you will feel alone. It might be later tonight. It might be in the morning. It might be when you're walking in a situation where you're particularly stressed out. In those lonely moments, the only reflection that we have is the thoughts in our mind. Those moments require empathy for ourselves, love for ourselves. And how could you love someone that says, hey, I see a problem, and I'm not even going to acknowledge it? Perhaps you can. Perhaps you're surrounded by those people. So be it. But we as a society need to start working together a lot more. And community involvement is going to determine the success of our species in the long run. Each individual of a community has the power to slightly augment it, to slightly change it for the better. Regardless of what skill set you have, your personality in itself can be something that creates culture. A good attitude is something that most people that are hiring, most people that are looking for partners require, right? Because that is one of the hardest things to come by. A good attitude about life, a hopeful attitude, will necessarily transform every single person in that system, slowly but surely, into believing that there are things to be optimistic about, hopeful about. And it really is not that hard. You just got to start thinking about a potential solution to a problem. Many people get lost in getting emotional about situations, and they don't think about the next step until a day or two afterwards. In my experience, because this is something that I believe is my purpose in life, I try to find solutions almost as quickly as I can after spotting a problem. Because if I come across someone that has the ability to change that, to actually make an improvement on that, I want to be able to talk to them about something very serious, something that needs to change. I did this earlier today when I was speaking to a staff member at my institution. There was some things that I wanted to augment. And because I had been thinking about this potentially for years, or maybe even a second, I had the ability, when someone came across my way, to say to them, hey, this is something that I've observed. Perhaps it's something that you should pay attention to. In a sense, it's a little narcissistic to believe that we have solutions to problems when we don't have all the data points. And to that I say, go collect more data. But at the same time, being a little off kilter, being a little spiky, I like to call it, in your personality is actually an indicator of your career success. And if you're an advocate for your community, you will realize that there's going to be times in your life where you kind of have to be a bit spiky, a bit abrasive in order to get your message across. Or if you're trying to accomplish something in your life, in order to be an advocate for yourself, you have to stand up, hold your ground against people that are going to undermine that. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do it in a graceless manner, but it means that you have to do it, period, to some degree. It could be as passive as an eye, like it could be as aggressive as sending a whole letter to someone, a government agency, whatever. We have to believe that we have the ability to affect our communities. Otherwise, we fall into a loop of hopelessness that will last generations, a loop of being taken for granted. So, what are some steps you can take to get involved in your community? The first is always observation. Keep your eyes and ears open, and you will hear and see things again and again pop up. And sooner or later, you should use that data to form a conclusion, hopefully as rational as you can possibly make it. You have to. Otherwise, you are risking your potential. Another way to get involved is there are going to be people in your life that are already involved in the community. Giving them ideas, or at least lifting them up and saying, hey, I like what you're doing. You're onto something. That is a phenomenal way. Contributing your thought power, your background, your knowledge into something is phenomenal. It's something that most people don't do, but it's quite easy. Another way to get involved in your community is to start keeping up with some of the things that are going to happen. If you are someone that has a predictive ability to say, this is probably rationally how something's going to turn out, you should be having conversations with the people that you respect and people that can potentially change those things as to how that thing is going to affect the future of your community. I talk about lots of these types of things in my videos. How to change your life in a way that makes you feel excited when you wake up and grateful for the opportunities that were presented to you. This video right here, I talk about one word that could potentially change everything in your life to the point where you won't even recognize yourself in 6 months. So if you're in a state, like most of us are, where you believe that your actions don't matter for so much besides your own happiness, I'll see you over there. Remember, actualize your potential. We need you.